morning, good afternoon, and good evening, wherever you are, and welcome back to the channel. Today, I thought I will go back a couple of decades, I believe, or so, where there was this feminist that decided to live as a man and see exactly the privileges that the feminists have been claiming men have. Which are these privileges? So there's these videos that I'm going to react to. The lady in question's name is Norah Vincent. You can search that and you'd find all about what she was trying to find out. So we are going to watch the documentary that they did, and I'll give my commentary as usual. Please subscribe to the channel and also leave a comment as the video continues.
Isn't net anymore, you know?
Later, Jim told the rest of the team, who all took it well.
What do you think Norah expected to find in a bowling alley full of guys?
I think you expected to find like a bunch of guys just talking about women's private parts and a bunch of racists and, you know, I think kind of that's what she came into this thinking.
They really showed me up as being the one who was really judgmental because they were the ones who took me in, not knowing anything about me. They were the ones who made me their friend and, you know, no judgments attached.
Now, she was trying to go into the men's world, if you like, to try and find the evidence of the so-called toxic masculinity and misogyny and whatnot on how men interact with each other. And of course, she's a lesbian and she looks very masculine. That's why she was able to pass as a man, although many of the men she was meeting would either are calling her gay, or they thought there was something a bit off about her. So there is the assumption among the feminist community that the both sexes are basically the same, which is the farthest thing from truth. Let's continue.
That's not like it. What's wrong?
Norah and Jim became closer friends once he knew that he was a she. Now Jim was willing to speak more personally and openly, like about his wife's cancer. Norah came to see that between men, intimacy is sadly lacking.
There's a tremendous potential for tenderness between men, and I'm not sure that it's always realized, and it's terribly sad.
The problem that she has is that she's looking at male relationships the same way she would look at female relationships. This at all talk about tenderness. Men show affection, if you like, very differently. We treat our friends differently. We can even use very similarly harsh words to describe our friends or make fun of them, but all in jest and all in love. But they want us to emote exactly as women emote, and that's just not going to happen. And that's the problem the feminists run into, because they want us to be the same. They want us to share emotions the same way. And admittedly, since the advent of feminism, a lot of men have become extremely effeminate. And they become extremely, a lot more emotional. And there's a problem. I'll explain later.
Cracking the mystery of a boys' night out is one thing, but what about the explicit world of a man's sexuality?
I really ran smack up against the difference between male and female sexuality, is that female sexuality is mental. It's up here. And male sexuality is a bodily function. It's a necessity. You just have to do it.
When we come back, Norah goes to strip clubs in the company of men as a man.
Now, the problem is that when you're trying to equate you're trying to make everything the same. For example, but a woman can have as many sexual partners as a man. But obviously, as you heard her speak, a feminist for back in the day, she understands that we are not the same. She understands how we approach intimacy is very different. And that's why a man could easily have several partners and still somehow keep the main affection to one woman, while a woman, it's much more difficult for that to happen. But all in all, generally speaking, just being promiscuous is not a good thing, whether you're a man or a woman. If your life is that you want to be a family person.
Guys who go to these high-priced clubs would say, this isn't about pain, it's about pleasure.
Men have had the tears and the emotional expression sort of pounded out of them from an early age, and so by the time they're men, they don't even have the vocabulary anymore, or the emotional awareness to really say what they're feeling.
This is exactly what I was telling you. She's saying the expressive or emotion has been beaten out of us. No, that is how we are. While we feel emotion because we are human beings, how we express it or respond to it is very different from women. And you see from her, even as much as she's trying to understand men, she's trying to understand men through the lens of a feminist. So she's not fully going to understand how men actually respond, or at least she's willfully ignorant of how that happens, or she just simply being dishonest about it. We can't leave any of these options off the table.
Norah says strip joints are about pure sex drive, completely empty of any meaningful interaction, even when a woman is gyrating on your lap.
But you're attracted to women. Were you ever aroused during any of
No.
these?
I really ran smack up against the difference between male and female sexuality, is that female sexuality is mental. It's up here.
Whereas for men, Norah says, sexuality is, shall we say, below the waist.
At its core, it's a bodily function. It's a necessity. It is such a powerful drive, and I think because we don't have testosterone in our systems, we don't understand how hard it is.
So it never gets cold where you back in Australia?
Throughout the project, Ned dabbled in the art of picking up a woman.
Where'd your friend go?
We went with him to this bar wearing...
If you would listen carefully, you'd realize that it's very difficult for her to just accept that for most men, sex is just a bodily function. Sometimes you just get it over with because, to be honest with you, females are much more important in the reproductive game than men, because one man can impregnate many women. So it follows that for most men, they have to take the chance when it comes. Because for most men, they don't meet the requirements of most females. That's just a fact. Over 40% of men in history have not been able to have children. And that's not by accident. That's by selection. So sometimes it's just good to accept the realities of biology also, because they drive these social engagements.
hidden cameras.
This is my friend JC. I'm Ned.
Norah was reminded that in this arena, it's women who have all the power.
We sit there and we just with one word, no, will crush someone. And the thing is, we don't have to do the part where you cross the room and you go up to a stranger and say the first words. And those first words are so hard to say without sounding like a cheese ball or sounding like a jerk or whatever else.
And what do you guys do?
Norah says the brush-off Barbara Jones gave Ned was typical.
She was just sort of emblazoned with hostility, you know, just looked at you and you saw everything cross her face, which was, oh, God, help me, not again. I'm trying to have a drink with a friend and I've got to deal with you.
Barbara was trying to dispose of Ned before her friend returned from the bathroom.
Anyway, we haven't seen each other in a while, so we're just catching up.
Yeah.
I've got to head out to mom.
But Ned returned and told Barbara the truth about her gender.
You're saying you gave us all the lines, like, try to get rid of us. I see it, and as a woman, I have such sympathy. I'm like, oh, I hate being this guy that you're trying to get rid of. You know?
Talking to a woman, Barbara seemed more open and friendly, and in the end, actually apologized for how she had treated Ned.
So
Sorry for being bitchy.
please.
Does that kind of living in the skin of a man in the bar scene, in the dating scene, give you a different kind of respect for men?
It gives me a certain definite sympathy.
This is the thing. Being rejected by a woman, no matter how good looking you are or successful, is an occupational hazard of being a man. And to her, she's talking about how a man would be crushed when a woman turns him down. I know many women can be really harsh about it, but that's happened to all of us, and we've learned or accepted that's how it is, so we are not crushed when it happens. I think, gentlemen, if you're one of these men that are crushed when you're turned down, I think you really need to check yourself, because you're going to be destroyed if every little rejection turns you into an emotional mess. And unfortunately, many of you have doubled in this emotionalism, and you not succeed, unfortunately. So you're not women. Get all right.
And I don't mean that there's any disrespect, but it just makes me understand what's going on.
Norah, as Ned, also went on about 30 dates with women, mostly arranging them on the internet.
Did you have any fun?
Rarely.
It was just an
pretty
ordeal.
Unpleasant. Yeah.
She says the pressure of Ned having to prove himself was grueling. Norah was surprised that many women had no interest in a soft, vulnerable man.
My prejudice was that the ideal man is a woman in a man's body. And I learned, no, that's really not. There are a lot of women out there who really want a manly man.
Ultimately, Ned told most of his dates that he was Norah. Many of the women reacted angrily, but usually just for a little while. Some women wanted to continue the relationship.
They remained interested in pursuing something further, you know, so whereas...
Sexually?
Yeah, and that was heterosexual women who, that's what I'm saying. It's all up here, because they said, well, we connected, and, you know, there's something, I really like you, and I don't care. How many guys would do that? That's the difference between male and female sexuality right there.
And this is the thing. Sexual access is very different between men and women. We all know this. Most women, even the most average, even below average, can have access to men of sex anytime they want, most of the time. What they might not get is, of course, long-term relationships, but sex, that is easy for women to get. It's a lot more difficult for men, especially if you have no money and no looks and no charisma. Because even then, if you had some money, you would buy, if you know what I mean. So that is the case here, and it's difficult for women to understand that even these days when the information is all out here. But I'm trying to show you, even all these years back, you can see this a very old video. It was still the same notions that they have refused to let go of.
The cloistered inner world of a monastery would be ideal. Ned managed to live for 3 weeks as a trainee. The monks, she says, were pious, smart men, but they were still men.
What made it prototypically male? What do you mean by that?
The breakdown in communication, the need, the desperate need for male intimacy, and the lack of ability to give it, really painful.
Norah said,
listen to that. She went to a male-only space and expected to see men hunting and catching each other randomly, as women do. This is actually ridiculous. You can see her own expression of this, that, oh, the desperate need of it. There's no desperate need for men to keep touching each other and hunt each other like women. Once we meet, we do the shoulder thing. After that, it's just talk. All this touchy, you know what it is, right?
Why are you gay?
as the monks were hostile to her feminine side, she says she was ostracized because of the monks' assumptions about her sexual orientation.
Ned was really at the center of it because he was an effeminate man, and many of them thought I was gay. As one of them told me in confession, I said, I have something to confess to you. And he said, well, I think I know what it is. And I said, what? And he said, well, you're gay. And I said, well, yeah, but not in the way you think.
Loneliness can't hide.
Norah thought the perfect end to her 18-month saga was to join a men-only therapy group, a place where guys tried to bond and show their emotions instead of hiding them.
They don't get to show the weakness. They don't get to show the affection, especially with each other. And so often all of their emotions are shown in rage.
And they kept talking about their rage, often their rage toward women and what they would do physically and violently towards women.
Right. A lot of this was blowing off steam. It's sort of talking about the things that need to be said that you would never do. I mean, they would talk about fantasizing about chopping up their wives or something. It's not that they would ever do that, but it was a way to get out the blackest thoughts.
He doesn't like doing that work, but he can't quit.
Norah began to empathize with the fear and stress men feel for having to always be the strong provider. The therapy leader, psychologist John Gornishelli, saw Ned's shyness as typical of a newbie coming to brave the group.
A lot of the guys spoke to me after the retreat and said, talking to him, I felt like I was talking to somebody feminine.
Once again, some group members thought Ned was gay, but no one suspected he was a woman. After 8 sessions, the group went on a backcountry retreat, but Norah's 18 months of being an imposter was closing in on her.
Okay, I would like to give a little... there's something I want to talk about these male retreats, because I see a lot of them sprouting out these days. We see a lot of this so-called male mentors or alpha male mentors. It's really just a joke, in my opinion, for making money. And a lot of the things that people do over there is not really to help, but it's more so to try and get content. And I think that if you're a man and you find yourself that you need to go to this kind of extreme retreats for men, just understand that you've made a very big mistake and you need to step back and watch for more sober things, normal life things. There are no extreme measures unless you're an addict of some sort that you need to take to change your life. It's very subtle changes that you may need to make over time. There is no pill you'll swallow overnight and you become a better person if you're a loser. So these retreats I do find a bit odd. I do find that the people that go to these retreats are a bit of oddballs, in my opinion. So I know that some people think this is important or it helps. Maybe it does help, but in my opinion, it's really not what you should look for as a man to try and get, to get improvement in your life. And I think that we need to be a bit more serious as men, because we are trying to apply emotions to everything. And this is why these people who you see, she's talking about they're going out there to relieve the stress. One of the best ways to relieve stress is go to the gym, hit a bag, run 5 miles, whatever you need to do, harder if you're fit enough. Those are the best ways to go about it. It's not to these weirdo cuts like excursions into some bush. I do find that to be odd, to be honest with you. I know this might not be appreciated by some of you, but look close. I find most of them are more help than they're more nonsense than they are any help. Anyway, ladies and gentlemen, the video is really an old video that really wanted so people to see how far these ideologies go. It even goes further than this. They've tried all sorts of social experiments, and it's always seen that they have not always, or that at least they're not willing to give men a fair shake. So that's why you need to work on yourself and become that person that cannot be shaken by these flimsy ideologies or the effects of them. You need to become as independent as you can, form a strong group of men and women who can help you move to your next phase. Because also, even if you want to be a better man, you really can't reach your climax unless you're applying yourself and your effect is felt across the society. That means men and women and children all alike. Okay? So again, please subscribe to the channel, leave a comment and tell me what you think about this video. And until next time, peace.